But like Harry says, Formula One has changed. It's changed a great deal, not only in terms of the tracks and the way it's broadcast and the sponsorships, but the safety aspects. And I know that you've had your fair share of incidents over the years. And in those times, unfortunately, there were fatalities. We had the likes of the late, great Ronnie Peterson and others. And you've had your own share of incidents. And we mentioned in the intro, not only did you have a rather spectacular crash in Monaco 1980, but it was in the States when you were racing out there in Michigan 1984 that you really came close to losing it all, hitting the wall at over 200 miles per hour. And I only actually watched the YouTube video for the first time this morning. And it's quite terrifying to watch the state of the car after the incident when the cameras pick it up. Could you just, if you're happy to, just talk us through what happened there and how lucky you were to get out of that car when you were taken out by the guys that turned up on the scene and actually come away with it eventually?
Yeah. And so we all have accidents in racing. I only ever got hurt one time, which was Michigan. My lap time before that, because it's funny how your memory captures images. Even though you're going 215 or 220 miles an hour, your memory is able to capture an image that lasts forever. So I just did a lap of 219 miles an hour average. Michigan was a high bank 2-mile oval. And when I was going into turn 3, there was a big bump. So you go over the bump, you straighten the wheel just a tiny bit, and then you go on. So it becomes a rhythm. Bump, straighten, accelerate, bump, straighten, accelerate. And so it was a rhythm. And everybody had it. You could see everybody's suspension as they went over it. And as I'm coming down the back straight, it just began to, not rain, but just that mist began to fall. And it was just enough to take the grip away. And so when I bounced and corrected, the car spun. I remember it spinning. It was so violent when it spun that I remember my head getting thrown out of the side of the car. And then I remember pulling my legs back as far as I could into the cockpit just in case I hit something hard. So I clearly remember, oh, shit, pulled my legs back as far as I could. And then I have no memory. Everything goes until about 2 seconds before the car stopped rolling off the banking. I was suddenly awake again because I remember seeing my legs bounce along the ground. And it never dawned on me that the whole front from the seat forward was gone. Never dawned on me. So it comes down, I look out, and I could see that my left leg, I was at a funny angle, as was my ankle. But as all racing drivers do, you go hands, fingers, toes, ankles, legs. I'm thinking, oh, it's all there. But I got to my left arm, and I could no longer feel my left arm. And I got a cold, chill sweat all the way through because I thought, I've lost my left arm. My team manager at the time was Merle Bettenhausen, who had the same accident in Michigan 15 years earlier and got his left arm chopped off. So I grabbed my helmet, pulled my helmet down as far as I could, and I could see my left arm was still attached. And that was, okay, I'm good. What I didn't know at the time is the water pipe burst from the radiator, burnt the nerve center on my left arm, which is what paralyzed it, which is what gave me the feeling that my arm was no longer there. And so the safety guys arrive, and the head of trauma walks up to me. Before he gets to me, he stops and he kneels down and just looks in my eyes. And I said to him years after, I said, Steve, why did you not come up to me? He said, because the accident was so severe, my job was to look into your eyes because we felt if you went into severe shock, we could lose you. And so my job was to look in your eyes to make sure that they didn't fold back and that you didn't die of shock. And so then that was it. My life changed from then on. I mean, I didn't understand when I was in the car. They started to medicate me. I was in the infield hospital. I could hear the doctor on the phone to the hospital as they get in the helicopter ready. And he's talking about multiple lower extremity injuries and exposed bone and all sorts of stuff. And I'm thinking, I'm now medicated to the point where I'm not sure he's actually describing me. You know, it's all in a bit of a fog. And then I remember the helicopter. I remember getting to the University Hospital in Michigan. And then suddenly I'll go out. They obviously medicated me, did the surgery. I wake up in this white light clinical room. I'm on a stretcher. I look over and I see this series of x-rays, and I see nuts and bolts and screws and rods. And in my complete naive state, I thought, man, that poor bastard, I wonder what happened to him. Never connected, because when you're medicated, you don't think clearly. Never connected that all that hardware was in my ankles, my legs. And then the whole recovery started. I mean, I was 3 years in therapy. I had 14 surgeries, bone grafting, skin grafting, broken hip joint, broken pelvis, broken ribs, broken hand, broken arm, third-degree burns. For good measure, all the blood transfusions were laced with hepatitis C.
Oh, God.
If you remember, back in those days, there were Hep C was known as the silent killer, because you didn't know you had it till it ate your liver. And then I had to get AIDS tested for 7 years, because there was no AIDS screening back then. It was just all beginning to come online. So it was a bit of a mess. Yeah.
Jeez.
And today, how much have you got metal all over, or how is it today?
I have a little bit, but I'm actually good. I can do most things. I mean, I don't jog or run or play tennis or anything with high impact like that. But I mean, I can pretty much do most things. Most people do not know that I have fused ankles. I don't walk with a shuffle or a limp or anything like that. So it was remarkably good. Yeah. I think considering, but here's how close that was. Tim, you mentioned, I could have lost my life. Again, circumstances fall into line that saves your life. John Paul Jr., who was an IndyCar driver at the time, saw the accident happen ahead of him, and he made a decision. He says, the only way I can miss him is I have to go right to the top of the high line, right by the wall. He said, then I probably won't hit him. Well, he made a decision, went high. He was probably still doing 180 miles an hour. My car broke the front off, was spinning back into the wall with no front on the car. So the circuit director said I was at least 0.8 of a second from certain fatal injuries, until right before I hit the wall with no front on the car, John Paul Jr. smashed right into the side of the car, lifted it off the ground and spun it down to the inside.
Wow.
Remarkable circumstances. Yeah.
It's insane. I mean, and I think he's the one who stopped on track, right? And he walked out of his car, and he had a bit of a limp, but he was okay. He would look shook up. He looked visibly shook up in the footage. I mean, I don't know what to say. Incredible. I mean, it's a mad story, and the injuries are insane. You are so lucky. How do you cope with that mentally? You mentioned you had 3 years of therapy. Was that physical therapy, or was that mental therapy?
Physical. I never had a mental issue. And when I'm in the hospital, people would ask me, are you going to go back racing? Or an even more pointed question is, why would you ever consider to go back racing again?